The briefing room at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado smelled like burnt coffee and salt air. 28 Navy SEALs sat in metal folding chairs, their attention fixed on the tactical map projected against the far wall. The afternoon sun cut through the blinds in sharp lines, painting stripes across their faces as Captain Derek Hollis walked them through the mission parameters for the third time that week. Maya Cross sat in the back corner, a clipboard balanced on her knee, her pen moving in small, precise strokes as she documented equipment requests. She wore plain khakis and a polo shirt, with a contractor badge clipped to her collar. Nobody looked at her twice. Contractors were furniture in briefing rooms. Necessary, forgettable, background noise. Captain Hollis tapped the map with his pointer. Intelligence suggests the compound has elevated positions here, here, and here. 3. Red circles appeared on surrounding ridgelines. Overwatch will be critical. We need eyes on those approaches before we insert. Maya's pen stopped moving. Her eyes tracked the distances, the angles, the sight lines. The western ridge was too exposed. The eastern ridge offered cover, but terrible visibility on the southern approach. The northern position looked promising until you factored in the afternoon sun. She'd seen terrain like this before. She'd lived in terrain like this before. Lieutenant Owen Pierce leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Sir, what about sniper support? Those ridges are 1,500 to 2,000 meters out. That's specialist territory. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today?" Hollis nodded. "Good question. Battalion's working on getting us a shooter, but availability is tight. Half the scout sniper platoon is deployed, the other half is in training rotation." He paused, scanning the room. "Any snipers here? Anyone qualified on long-range systems?" Silence. The SEALs exchanged glances. A few shook their heads. These were assaulters, breachers, close-quarters specialists. They could all shoot, but 1,000-meter precision work required different training, different mindset, different skills entirely. Maya's hand moved before her brain fully processed the decision. She stood slowly, the metal chair scraping against the floor. Every head in the room turned. Captain Hollis blinked. "Miss Cross? I'm qualified, sir." Her voice was quiet, steady, almost conversational, like she was commenting on the weather rather than volunteering for a combat mission. The room held its breath for exactly 2 seconds. Then someone laughed. A short, sharp bark of amusement from the middle rows. Another SEAL chuckled, the sound spreading like ripples on water. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from genuine disbelief, from a mental image so unexpected it bypasses the filter between brain and mouth. Lieutenant Pierce turned in his seat, eyebrows raised. "You're qualified?" "Yes, sir." "As in, you've taken a basic marksmanship course? Or you mean actually qualified?" His tone wasn't hostile, just skeptical. The same tone you'd use if someone claimed they could fly by flapping their arms. Maya met his eyes without flinching. "Actually qualified, sir. Long-range precision fire. Mil-dot ranging, wind calls, elevation adjustment, target discrimination. All of it." More laughter now, louder. One SEAL whispered to his neighbor, just loud enough to carry. "Contractor thinks she's." Chris Kyle, Master Chief Rodriguez, a barrel-chested operator with 20 years in the teams, raised a hand to quiet the room. The noise died down, but smiles remained. He looked at Maya with the patient expression of a man humoring a child. "Ma'am, with all due respect, we're talking about combat. Overwatch. Hostile environment. Unknown enemy strength. This isn't a range day with paper targets." "I understand that, Master Chief. Do you?" His tone wasn't unkind, but it carried weight. "Because most contractors we get, their qualifications mean they shot a hunting rifle once in Montana. We need someone who can put rounds on target at distance, under stress, in dynamic conditions. Someone who's done it before." Maya's expression didn't change. "I've done it before." Captain Hollis studied her for a long moment. His initial amusement had faded into something closer to curiosity. He'd worked with enough contractors to know most didn't volunteer for anything beyond their contract scope. Most stayed in their lane, did their paperwork, collected their paychecks, and went home. This woman had just stepped so far out of her lane she wasn't even on the same road anymore. Miss Cross, what exactly is your role here? Equipment and logistics coordination, sir. I track inventory, manage requisitions, coordinate maintenance schedules for weapons systems and tactical gear. So you work with the gear but don't use it? I use it, sir, just not on your dime. She shifted her weight slightly, the movement minimal, controlled. I maintain qualification on my own time. Private range in the desert. I shoot twice a week, sometimes more. Pierce laughed again, but this time there was an edge to it. Twice a week? Ma'am, these guys train every day. They live this stuff. No offense, but there's a reason we don't send contractors downrange for trigger work. Maya nodded slowly. None taken, sir. But the question was whether anyone in this room is qualified. I am. The room erupted again. Half the SEALs were grinning now, shaking their heads. A few exchanged amused glances that said, "Can you believe this?" One operator in the front row muttered something about participation trophies. Rodriguez stood, moving to the front of the room with the easy authority of a man who'd earned every ounce of respect he commanded. Miss Cross, I appreciate the enthusiasm, genuinely. But sniping isn't about enthusiasm. It's about skill, experience, and ice in your veins when someone's shooting back. We need a professional. I am a professional, Master Chief. At logistics. The words weren't harsh, but they were final. That's what we hired you for. That's what you're good at. Let's keep it that way. Maya didn't argue. She didn't push. She simply nodded once and sat back down, her clipboard returning to her knee, her pen resuming its quiet documentation, as if nothing had happened. The briefing continued. Captain Hollis moved on to extraction routes, rally points, communication protocols. The laughter faded into focused professionalism as the SEALs absorbed the mission details, but every few minutes, someone would glance back at the contractor in the corner, a small smile tugging at their lips. After the briefing ended, the operators filed out. In clusters, voices low as they discussed loadouts and assignments. Maya remained seated, finishing her notes with the same methodical precision she'd shown throughout. She didn't look embarrassed. She didn't look angry. She just looked patient. Lieutenant Pierce stopped on his way out, hovering near her chair. Hey, listen. No hard feelings about the laughter, right? It's just, you've got to understand how that sounded. Maya looked up, her expression neutral. I understand, sir. Good. Because we weren't trying to. You weren't trying to be disrespectful. You just didn't believe. Her tone carried no accusation. Just simple statement of fact. It's fine. Most people don't. Pierce opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded awkwardly. Right. Well. Good talk. He left quickly, like a man escaping a conversation that had become unexpectedly complicated. Maya watched him go. Then she returned to her notes, her pen moving in those same small, precise strokes. On the margin of her page, barely visible, she'd sketched the 3 ridge positions from memory, distances, angles, wind patterns, all the information her brain had automatically catalogued while Captain Hollis was talking. Old habits died hard. She gathered her papers and stood, slinging her worn canvas bag over one shoulder. As she walked toward the exit, she passed a bulletin board covered in unit photos, commendations, memorial tributes. Her eyes caught on one photograph, in particular, a group of Marines, in desert camouflage, circa 2011. Somewhere in Helmand Province. 8 faces, 6 men, and 2 women. All lean and hard and young. She recognized every face. She'd seen 7 of them die. Maya's hand drifted to her left collarbone, fingers tracing a shape beneath her shirt that no one could see. Tattoo. 3 years old. A single word in clean, simple letters. Phantom. She let her hand drop and walked out into the California afternoon, where the sun was bright and the air was warm and nobody was shooting at her. Not yet. The Silver Strand Tavern sat just outside the base gates, a weathered establishment that had been serving Navy personnel since before Maya was born. The walls were covered in unit patches, faded photographs, and the kind of memorabilia that accumulated when the same families ran the same bar for 3 generations. Maya sat at the far end of the counter, nursing a ginger ale and working through a maintenance report on her laptop. She'd changed into jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, her contractor badge safely stowed in her bag. Around her, a dozen SEALs from the afternoon's briefing occupied the tables, their voices mixing with classic rock playing from ancient speakers. She wasn't eavesdropping. She was just present. And when you're present in a room full of operators who've been training together for years, you hear things. I'm telling you. Funniest thing I've seen all month. That was Pierce, his voice carrying over the music. This contractor, lady stands up, dead serious, claims she's a qualified sniper. Like, actually qualified. Laughter rippled through the group. What'd Hollis say? Someone asked. What could he say? Rodriguez shut it down. Nicely, but you know. Mom, we appreciate your enthusiasm. But we're professionals here. Pierce's imitation of the Master Chief was spot on, earning more chuckles. Contractors, man. They spend 6 months around the gear and suddenly think they're operators. Maya's fingers never stopped typing. Her face showed no reaction. She'd learned a long time ago that the worst thing you could do was prove you were listening. People said more when they thought you couldn't hear. Rodriguez's voice cut through, quieter but authoritative. Ease up. She was just trying to help. By volunteering for a combat mission? Pierce sounded genuinely baffled. Master Chief, you know what happens. When we let untrained personnel downrange, we end up babysitting. We end up compromised. She said she was trained. She said a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. A pause. Then Pierce continued, his tone shifting to something closer to concern. Look, I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but we've got enough to worry about without adding a contractor who thinks Call of Duty counts as qualification. More laughter. Maya took a sip of her ginger ale. Besides, another voice chimed in. Petty Officer Hayes. If Maya remembered correctly, even if she could shoot, and that's a massive to-getter, if there's the physical component. Those ridge positions require a 2-mile hump with full gear in rough terrain. My pack weighs 80 pounds. You really think? All right, enough. Rodriguez again, firm but not angry. Point made. We'll get a real shooter from battalion. End of discussion. The conversation shifted to other topics. Loadouts, intel updates, a heated debate about whether the new night vision systems were actually better than the old ones. Maya finished her report, closed her laptop, and signaled the bartender for her check. As she waited, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you caused a scene today. Contractors staying in their lane now. Cross? She deleted it without responding. The number was spoofed anyway. She recognized the pattern. Someone with too much time and too little maturity. Miss Cross. She turned. Master Chief Rodriguez stood beside her, his expression unreadable. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the gray creeping into his temples, the wear that came from 2 decades of hard living. He gestured to the empty stool beside her. May I? Of course, Master Chief. He sat with a quiet grunt, waving off the bartender who approached. For a long moment, he said nothing, just studied her with the same patience he'd shown in the briefing room. Finally, I wasn't trying to embarrass you today. I know. You understand why I had to shut that down though, right? Maya nodded. Absolutely. You don't know. You don't know my capabilities. From your perspective, I'm a contractor with delusions of competence. Safer to say no than risk a mission compromise. Rodriguez's eyebrows rose slightly. That's a remarkably clear-eyed assessment. I've been around the military long enough to understand the reasoning. She met his eyes directly. For what it's worth. I wasn't trying to step on anyone's toes. I just heard a need, and thought I could fill it. Where'd you learn to shoot? The question came casual, curious. Not hostile, but not quite friendly either. A test, maybe. Or genuine interest. Maya weighed her response carefully. Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. Quantico. 2010. Graduated second in my class. The silence that followed was different from the laughter in the briefing room. This silence had weight, texture, substance. Rodriguez's expression didn't change. But something shifted behind his eyes. Calculation. Maybe. Reassessment. You were a Marine. Yes, Master Chief. What unit? 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Charlie Company. Scout Sniper Platoon attached for Helmand deployment. 2011 to 2012. Rodriguez processed that information slowly, carefully. And, now you're pushing paper? Managing inventory. Now, I'm a contractor doing the job I was hired to do. Why'd you get out? Maya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The only crack in her otherwise perfect composure. That's a longer conversation, Master Chief. And not one I'm inclined to have. In a bar. He nodded, respecting the boundary. Fair enough. He stood, preparing to leave, then paused. For what it's worth. If what you're saying is true, I apologize for how it went down today. But you've got to understand. About 1 use of some of hind, and 1 you and well you, 1 use of hind and 1 use of hind, 1 use of hind and 1 you and wind. Use of hind and 1 the family, when use of hind and 1. And 1 you and 1 you and wind. 1 use of hind. I do understand. Truly. Maya's voice stayed level, almost gentle. You made the right call based on the information you had. No apology necessary. Rodriguez studied her for another moment, then nodded once and returned to his team. Maya watched him go, then noticed several of the SEALs staring in her direction now, their expressions shifting from amusement to something more guarded. Curious. She left cash on the bar and walked out before the questions could start. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a handful of trucks and motorcycles belonging to the late shift crowd. Maya unlocked her beaten Ford Ranger 15 years old. 200,000 miles. Still running strong, and tossed her bag onto the passenger seat. Her phone buzzed again. This time, the number was familiar. She answered on the second ring. This is Cross. Maya. It's Hollis. Captain Derek Hollis sounded tired. Got a minute? Yes, sir. Rodriguez just called me. Said you claim you went through Scout Sniper School. That true? Yes, sir. Why didn't you mention that in the briefing? Maya leaned against her truck, watching moths circle the parking lot lights. You asked if anyone was qualified. I said I was. The rest seemed like unnecessary detail. Unnecessary. Hollis laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Cross. If you're really USMC trained, that changes the entire conversation. That's not unnecessary, that's mission critical. With respect, sir, it doesn't change anything. Your team doesn't trust me. They don't know me. Throwing credentials at them won't fix that. Trust gets earned, not demanded. Another long pause. You're not wrong. She heard him exhale slowly. Listen. Battalion still hasn't confirmed a shooter. We're 48 hours from insertion and the timeline's compressing. I need options. I'm an option. Sir, you're also a contractor. Which means liability issues, insurance headaches, and about 6 layers of bureaucratic bullshit I don't have time to navigate. Understood. But the word hung in the air. If you're serious about this, I need proof. Real proof. Not stories from a decade ago. Maya straightened. What kind of proof? Range day. Tomorrow. 0600. Bring whatever rifle you use. I'll have Rodriguez and Pierce observe. You make your shots. We'll talk about bringing you on. You don't. We never have this conversation again. Clear? Crystal clear, sir. 0600. Cross. Don't be late. The line went dead. Maya stood in the parking lot for a long moment. Phone still pressed to her ear. Mind already calculating what needed to happen in the next 12 hours. She hadn't fired her rifle in 10 days too long, but work had been demanding. She'd need to clean it tonight. Check. The scope mounting. Verify 0. Her good ammunition was at home. The match-grade stuff she saved for serious work. She'd need to load 40 rounds minimum, maybe 60 to be safe. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Afghanistan, 2012. A ridge not unlike the ones in tomorrow's briefing. She'd been lying in the rocks for 18 hours, watching the compound through her scope. Her spotter, Danny Reeves, from Oklahoma, always smiling, had fallen asleep beside her during the quiet hours before dawn. She'd let him rest. They'd been running on adrenaline and bad coffee for 3 days straight. When the process target finally emerged, Danny had woken instantly, calling wind and range like he'd never closed his eyes. She'd taken the shot at 1,847 meters. Clean hit. Mission complete. They'd humped back to base through hostile territory, taking turns on point, trusting each other completely. 6 weeks later, Danny was gone, along with most of the team. An IED buried deeper than any detector could find, triggered when their convoy passed over a culvert bridge that intelligence had cleared as safe. She'd been in the lead vehicle. She'd survived. They hadn't. The official investigation blamed faulty intelligence. The unofficial whispers blamed her. Because someone always needed to be blamed, and she'd been the one who lived. Maya closed her eyes and breathed slowly through her nose. Not tonight. She couldn't afford those memories tonight. She climbed into her truck, started the engine, and drove toward her small apartment in Imperial Beach. She had work to do. Tomorrow, she'd show them what a contractor could do. Tomorrow, they'd start to understand. The range at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado occupied a stretch of scrubland east of the main compound, where the morning sun turned the caride, dirt to gold, and the wind rolled in steady from the Pacific. Maya arrived at 0545, her rifle case slung over one shoulder, a range bag in her other hand. Captain Hollis was already there, coffee cup in hand, watching the sunrise. He turned as her truck pulled up, his expression neutral and professional. Early. Force of habit, sir. Let's see what you've got. Maya set her cases down and opened the rifle case with practiced efficiency. Inside, nestled in foam padding, lay a Remington 700 inches, 308 Winchester. The stock showed wear scratches and scuffs that came from real use, not cosmetic aging. The scope was a Leupold Mark IV, an older model but meticulously maintained. Everything about the rifle screamed function over fashion. Master Chief Rodriguez and Lieutenant Pierce arrived 5 minutes later in a Humvee, their expressions skeptical but not hostile. They'd come to watch her fail. Maya knew. Not because they wanted her to fail, but because they expected it. Fair enough. Morning, Miss Cross. Rodriguez nodded toward the rifle. That your primary? Yes, Master Chief. Not a fancy setup. Don't need fancy. Just need reliable. What's your 100 yards? Currently. I can adjust for whatever distance you want to test. Hollis pulled out a small notebook. We'll start at 300 yards. Cold bore shot. No warm-up. Then we'll move to 600. Then 1,000. Winds running about 8 to 10 knots from the southwest. I'll give you 5 minutes to set up and assess conditions. Sound fair? More than fair, sir. Maya moved to the shooting position, a simple concrete bench with sandbag rest. She didn't rush. She opened her range bag methodically, removing a shooting mat, a small notebook of her own, a Kestrel wind meter, and 3 boxes of match-grade ammunition. Federal gold medal match, 168-grain Sierra Match King hollow points. The good stuff. She unfolded the mat and laid it precisely on the bench, then settled the rifle onto the sandbags. Her movements were economical, practiced, the actions of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. She pulled the bolt back and visually confirmed the chamber was empty, then loaded a single round. Pierce watched with his arms crossed. 1 round at 300? Most people like a couple of sighters first. Don't need them. Maya pressed her cheek to the stock, her patient eye finding the scope naturally. She breathed slowly, watching the target through the lens. A simple paper silhouette. Center mass marked with a 6-inch circle. She held the kestrel up briefly, noted the wind speed and direction, then made a tiny adjustment to her scope turret. 2 clicks. The wind wasn't straight on. It had maybe 15 degrees of angle, which meant less drift than a full-value crosswind, but more than zero. She factored the angle, the range, the ammunition ballistics, all in the space of 3 seconds. Her finger found the trigger. She exhaled slowly, let her heart beat twice, and squeezed during the natural pause between beats. The rifle cracked. The sound echoed across the range. Through the scope, Maya watched the bullet strike 2 inches right of center, well within the scoring circle. Hollis lowered his binoculars. Hit. Center mass, Pierce said. Nothing. But his arms uncrossed. 600 yards, Hollis announced. Maya cycled the bolt, the spent brass ejecting cleanly. She loaded another round and made adjustments more elevation, accounting for increased wind drift at longer range. At 600 yards, a 10-knot crosswind could push a bullet 8 to 10 inches off course. She clicked her windage turret 3 times, then settled back into position. This shot took longer. She waited for the wind to settle, watching the mirage shimmer across the desert floor. The heat was building as the sun climbed, creating convection currents that bent light and pushed bullets in unpredictable ways. She breathed with the mirage, feeling its rhythm, understanding its language. When the moment came, she took it. The rifle spoke again. 600 yards downrange, the target sprouted a hole 4 inches left of center. Still well within scoring range, but not as clean as the first shot. Rodriguez grunted. Wind call was close. You're reading the mirage. Yes, Master Chief. Where'd you learn that? Experience. They moved to the 1,000-yard line. Here, the target looked impossibly small, a tiny rectangle of paper against brown earth. At this distance, everything mattered. Temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, the exact consistency of the ammunition, even the rotation of the earth, became a factor in extreme precision work. Maya took her time now. She recorded conditions in her notebook. Temperature 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 42%. Barometric pressure, 29.92 inches. Wind variable between 8 and 12 knots. She calculated her elevation adjustment, added 3 minutes of angle to account for the increased distance. She estimated the wind drift and added corresponding windage clicks. Then she paused. Her hand drifted to her left collarbone again. That unconscious gesture she made when stress built in her chest. Beneath her shirt, hidden from view, the tattoo phantom rested over her heart, her call sign from another life. You good, Cross? Hollis asked. Yes, sir. Just confirming my math. She settled into position for the 3rd time. At 1,000 yards, the bullet would be in flight for roughly 1.3 seconds. In that time, wind could push it 2 feet off course if she miscalled it. The target wouldn't even hear the shot until after the bullet arrived. Sound traveled that slowly. She controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat slow to that familiar, almost meditative rhythm. Her world narrowed to the scope picture. The crosshairs. The tiny target wavering in the mirage. Her finger took up tension on the trigger. Slow, steady, straight back pressure with no jerking, no flinching, no anticipation. The rifle recoiled. Maya rode the recoil, keeping her eye in the scope to spot her own impact. At 1,000 yards, it took a moment for the hit to register that slight delay as physics played out across a 1/4 mile of air. The target jerked. Not center mass this time, but high, chest, maybe 3 inches from perfect center. Hollis lowered his binoculars very slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried a different quality than before. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Hit. Solid hit at 1,000 yards. First round. Pierce stared at the distant target like it had personally betrayed him. That's not an easy shot. No, Rodriguez agreed quietly. It's not. Maya saved her rifle and began packing her equipment with the same methodical care she'd shown setting up. She didn't celebrate, didn't grin, didn't make any show of her success. She just worked through her routine. Remove ammunition, clear chamber, wipe down the rifle, secure it in its case. Hollis approached, his notebook tucked under one arm. Miss Cross, I owe you an apology. Not necessary, sir. It is, actually. I made assumptions yesterday. We all did. With good reason, Maya said. Simply. I'm a contractor in khakis and a polo shirt. I don't exactly scream, special operations sniper. Your skepticism was rational. Maybe. But rational or not, I should have asked more questions before dismissing you. He paused, weighing his next words. We still have issues to work through: liability, chain of command, rules of engagement for contractors. But if you're willing, I'd like to bring you onto this mission as Overwatch support. Maya stopped packing. For a long moment, she said nothing. When she finally looked up, her expression carried something Pierce couldn't quite read. Not excitement, not even satisfaction. Something quieter, heavier. I'm willing, sir. We brief again tomorrow at 1400. Full tactical overview. Target package. Insertion plan. You'll integrate with the assault element but maintain independent command of your position. Rodriguez will be your liaison. Understood. As Hollis and Pierce walked back to their vehicle, Rodriguez lingered. He watched Maya finish securing her gear, then spoke quietly. That rifle's been to war. It wasn't a question. Maya glanced at him, then back to her case. Yes, Master Chief. It has. So have you? Yes. Care to tell me about it? She closed the case with a soft click. Not particularly. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Fair enough. But Cross, if you're coming down range with us, we're going to be trusting you with our lives. At some point, you're going to have to let us in. Maya stood, slinging her rifle over her shoulder. Master Chief, I just put 3 rounds through 3 targets at 3 different distances without sighters or warm-up. I showed you what I can do. The rest is just stories. Stories matter to operators. They tell us who you are under pressure, who you'll be when things go sideways. Then I guess you'll find out when things go sideways. She walked to her truck without looking back, her boots crunching on gravel, her shadow long in the morning light. Rodriguez watched her go, his expression thoughtful. Pierce jogged over. What do you think? I think, Rodriguez said slowly, that we just invited someone very dangerous to join our team. And I don't mean dangerous to the enemy. You think she's a problem? No. I think she's got ghosts. And ghosts make people unpredictable. He turned away from Maya's departing truck. But damn if she can't shoot. They climbed into the Humvee and drove back toward the main base, leaving the range quiet except for the wind and the distant sound of waves breaking against the shore. Maya drove home in silence, her hands steady on the wheel, her mind already running through the upcoming mission. She'd proven herself. Today, they'd seen what she could do. Tomorrow, they'd start to see who she was. And if things went the way she suspected they might, they'd eventually learn why a Marine Corps scout sniper was working as an equipment coordinator at a Navy base. Why someone with her skills would choose paperwork over the field. Why she'd turned down 3 job offers from private military contractors, 2 from federal agencies, and 1 from a Marine Corps colonel who'd begged her to come back. They'd learn about Helmand Province, about Danny Reeves and the rest of Charlie Company, about the investigation that cleared her officially but destroyed her reputation unofficially, about the nightmares that still woke her at 0300, heart-pounding, reaching for a rifle that wasn't there. They'd learn about Phantom. But not yet. Not today. Today, she'd just be Maya Cross, contractor, who could make shots most people thought were impossible. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The Tactical Operations Center hummed with controlled energy at 0430 the next morning. Maya sat in the back row of the briefing room, her contractor badge visible but somehow less noticeable than before. Yesterday's range performance had earned her a different kind of invisibility. The kind that came from competence rather than dismissal. Captain Hollis stood at the front, dark circles under his eyes, suggesting he'd spent most of the night on phone calls with higher command. All right, listen up. Mission timeline has accelerated. We're launching at 1,800 today instead of tomorrow. Intelligence indicates our target is preparing to move, possibly within 24 hours. We hit now or we lose him. The SEALs shifted in their seats, professional but clearly recalculating mental preparations. 24 hours of readiness compressed into 12. Not impossible, but not ideal. Hollis's eyes found Maya. Cross, you're confirmed as Overwatch. Legal sorted. The liability issues. Overnight, you'll be operating under a special augmentee clause. Rodriguez will brief you on integration protocols after this. Lieutenant Pierce raised a hand. Sir, no disrespect to Miss Cross's shooting ability, but she hasn't trained with the team. She doesn't know our communication protocols, our movement patterns, our contingency procedures. We're asking her to support an operation she's had zero time to rehearse. Noted. Hollis's tone suggested the decision was final regardless, which is why she'll be positioned independently. Her job isn't to move with you, it's to own the high ground and eliminate threats you can't see. Classic Overwatch doctrine. She doesn't need to know your dance steps if she's playing a different instrument. Rodriguez stood, moving to the map. Cross will insert 12 hours prior to the assault element. She'll move to the northern ridge position here. He tapped the map under cover of darkness. By the time we launch, she'll be established, concealed, and have complete observation of the target compound and surrounding approaches. Maya studied the map intently. The northern ridge sat 1,850 meters from the primary structure, slightly elevated, with good angles on 3 of the 4 compound walls. It was the same position she'd identified during the original briefing as the strongest option. Someone had been paying attention. Rules of engagement. Hollis continued. Cross, you're authorized to engage any armed hostile that presents a direct threat to the assault team. You are not authorized to initiate contact unless team elements are in immediate danger. Your rifle stays cold until we need it hot. Clear? Clear, sir. Communication will be on the primary assault net. Call sign Romeo 7 for the team. November Whisper for Overwatch. November Whisper. The designation for sniper elements. Not contractor. Not augmentee. A proper call sign that carried respect, even if temporary. Questions? A dozen hands went up. The next hour dissolved into detailed mission planning, movement routes, checkpoint timing, casualty evacuation procedures, equipment manifests. Maya absorbed it all, taking minimal notes because her memory was trained to hold this kind of information. She'd brief up and execute before, just with different people, different terrain, different enemies. The core structure was always the same. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more inspiring military stories like this one. After the briefing, Rodriguez pulled Maya aside to a small equipment room stocked with tactical gear. Let's talk about what you'll need for a 12-hour stalk and hide position. Maya glanced around the room, mentally cataloging. Ghillie suit, obviously. Natural vegetation from the target area for supplemental camouflage. High-protein food, no wrappers that crinkle. Water, at least 4 liters. Range finder. Spotting scope. Kestrel. Communication rig with spare batteries. Night vision for the approach and exfil. Medical kit. She paused. And I'll bring my own rifle. I've already confirmed 0, and I trust it more than any loaner system. Rodriguez nodded slowly. You've done this before. Yes, Master Chief. How many times? Maya met his eyes. Enough times that I stopped counting. He studied her for a long moment, then pulled a tablet from his cargo pocket. I did some checking last night. Made some calls to old Marine contacts. Your name came up in connection with Operation Phantom Talon, Helmand Province, 2012. Maya's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. A door closing. That operation's classified, Master Chief. I know. Which is why nobody would give me details. But they confirmed you were there. And they confirmed that whatever happened, it wasn't what the official report said. Rodriguez set the tablet down. Look, I'm not trying to dig up bad memories. But if you're coming into a hot zone with my team, I need to know you won't freeze if things go bad. I won't freeze. How can I be sure? Because I'm still here. Maya's voice stayed level, but her words carried weight. Master Chief, whatever you think you know about Phantom Talon, here's what matters. I went into bad terrain with a good team. Most of them didn't come back. I did, and I've spent every day since figuring out how to make sure that doesn't happen again to people I'm responsible for protecting. She picked up a ghillie suit, examining it with professional detachment. So no, I won't freeze. I'll do exactly what I've trained to do. Put rounds on target when you need them most. Rodriguez considered this, then nodded once. Good enough. He gestured to the equipment. Take whatever you need. We'll have a vehicle ready to move you at 1,600. That gives you time to prep your gear and get your head right. Appreciated, Master Chief. As she gathered equipment, Pierce appeared in the doorway, watching her work. After a moment, he spoke. Yesterday at the range. That wasn't beginner's luck. No, sir. You shoot like someone who's spent years behind a scope. I have. So why logistics? Why paperwork? Pierce's tone wasn't accusatory, just genuinely confused. You've got skills most people would kill for. Why waste them managing inventory? Maya secured a buckle on her pack without looking up. Maybe I'm not wasting them. Maybe I'm just choosing what battles I fight these days. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got, sir. Pierce opened his mouth to press further, then seemed to think better of it. He stepped aside as Maya shouldered her pack and headed for the door. She spent the next 8 hours in meticulous preparation. Cleaned her rifle again, even though it was already clean. Checked every piece of equipment twice. Ran through mental rehearsals of the stalk, the setup, the shot sequences she might need to make. She ate a high-protein meal at noon, then nothing else food in the stomach. Slowed reaction time. Made you sluggish. At 1,545, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror in the base locker room, staring at her reflection. She'd changed into multicam pattern fatigues, her hair pulled back tight under a patrol cap. The woman, looking back at her, could have been the same one from 2012. Could have been Phantom. She pulled her shirt collar aside, revealing the edge of her tattoo. 3 words in clean script. Phantom. Never forget. Her call sign and her promise, inked permanently above her heart. She covered it again and walked out to find Rodriguez waiting beside a nondescript SUV. No conversation, just a nod. She climbed in, and they drove in silence toward the desert staging area where a helicopter waited to insert her under cover of approaching dusk. The flight was smooth, the pilot keeping low and fast, using terrain masking to avoid detection. Maya sat in the open door, one hand on her rifle, watching the desert pass beneath her in shades of amber and shadow. When they reached the drop point 2 miles from the target ridge, the helicopter didn't land, just hovered 3 feet off the deck long enough for her to jump. She hit the ground running. The helicopter already pulling away, leaving her alone in hostile territory as the sun painted the western sky in violent reds and oranges. Maya moved through the desert like smoke, her ghillie suit breaking up her outline, her steps deliberate and silent. Every 50 meters, she paused, listened, scanned. The terrain was rocky and sparse, offering concealment but requiring careful route selection. She had 2 hours of good light left to reach her position and get established before full darkness fell. She made it in 90 minutes. The northern ridge offered exactly what she'd hoped for, a natural depression behind a rock outcropping that provided both cover and an unobstructed view of the target compound. She spent 30 minutes preparing her hide position, carefully arranging rocks and vegetation to create a shooting platform that would be invisible from any angle. She set up her spotting scope, her rangefinder, her rifle on its bipod. Everything, Within easy reach. Everything positioned for maximum efficiency. By the time darkness fell, she was settled in, nearly invisible, her breathing slow and controlled, and she waited. Waiting was 90% of a sniper's job. The ability to stay absolutely still, absolutely focused, for hours at a time. Most people couldn't do it. The mind wandered, the body cramped, attention drifted. But Maya had learned patience in the hardest possible school. Through her night vision, she watched the compound come alive with activity. Guards on routine patrol, vehicles moving in and out, lights flickering in windows. She counted personnel, noted weapons, mapped movement patterns, all the information the assault team would need when they arrived. At 0200, she keyed her radio for the first time. Romeo 7, November Whisper. In position. Compound under observation. Count 12 armed personnel. Mixture of AKs and PKM machine guns. No heavy weapons visible. Vehicle activity has decreased. Patrol patterns holding steady. Rodriguez's voice came back, clear despite the encryption. November Whisper. Romeo 7 copies all. Good work. Stand by for updates. ETA to launch is 4 hours. Standing by. Maya settled deeper into her hide and continued watching. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. The temperature dropped into the 50s. Somewhere in the distance, a wild dog howled. And in her hide position, Maya became part of the mountain, breathing with it, existing as nothing more than another shadow among shadows. At 0545, just as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern horizon, everything changed. Maya saw it through her scope, a vehicle convoy approaching from the south. 3 trucks, moving fast. Dust plumes trailing behind them. Not the casual traffic they'd observed before. This was urgent. Purposeful. She keyed her radio. Romeo 7, November. Whisper. New development. 3 vehicle convoy approaching target compound from the south. Moving at speed. This looks like an unplanned arrival. Captain Hollis's voice came back immediately. November Whisper. Can you identify? Maya adjusted her scope, zooming in on the lead vehicle. The pre-dawn light was tricky, but her scope gathered every available photon. She saw armed men in the truck beds, saw weapons that looked newer and better maintained than what the compound guards carried. And in the second truck's passenger seat, she saw a face that made her breath catch. Romeo 7. Positive identification. On target Alpha. I repeat, target Alpha is in the convoy. He's early. He's moving now. A pause. Then, Hollis's voice carried barely contained urgency. November Whisper. Confirm. You have visual on target Alpha? Confirmed. Middle truck, passenger side. Positive identification. Copy. Stand by. But Maya was already tracking the convoy as it pulled into the compound. Armed men spilled out, moving with military precision. This wasn't a casual meeting. This was an extraction operation. Target Alpha was preparing to disappear. The radio crackled. November Whisper. Romeo 7. Mission is scrubbed. I repeat, mission is scrubbed. We are not in position. We don't have support assets. And we're not launching an emergency assault without proper preparation. Maya watched through her scope as men began loading equipment into the trucks. They were packing up, preparing to move. If they left this compound, the trail would go cold. Months of intelligence gathering, wasted. And Target Alpha A, terrorist facilitator responsible for 3 attacks that had killed 42 people, would vanish into the network. Romeo 7, November Whisper. If we don't move now, we lose him. He'll be gone in 15 minutes. Negative, November Whisper. We're 1 hour out minimum. And that's if we launch immediately with 0 mission prep. By the time we arrive, they'll either be gone or fortified. This isn't a movie. We don't cowboy an assault. Maya's finger rested beside her trigger guard, not on it. Not yet. Her training screamed at her to follow orders. Her instinct told her something else entirely. Through her scope, She watched Target Alpha supervise the loading operation, gesturing to his men, checking his watch, moving with the confidence of someone who believed he was safe, untouchable, about to slip away into darkness. She thought about Danny Reeves, bleeding out in Afghan dirt while she held pressure on wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. She thought about the investigation that blamed bad intelligence, when the real problem was commanders who wouldn't listen to the people on the ground. She thought about 42 people whose families would never get justice, because protocols and timelines mattered more than action. Her voice came across the radio, calm, measured, final. Romeo 7, November whisper. Target Alpha is loading into a vehicle, requesting permission to take the shot. Negative. November whisper. You are not authorized. Stand down. Maya's crosshairs settled on Target Alpha's chest. Range 1,847 meters. Wind 6 knots from the west. Temperature 58 degrees and rising. She'd made this shot 100 times. Romeo 7, last call. He's getting into the truck now. November whisper. I am ordering you to stand down. Do not engage. Acknowledge. Maya's finger moved from beside the trigger guard to the trigger itself. 2 pounds of pressure was all it would take. 2 pounds between justice and letting a mass murderer disappear. She closed her eyes briefly, hearing Danny's voice in her memory. Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same thing, Phantom. You'll know when that moment comes. Trust yourself. She opened her eyes. Her finger relaxed off the trigger. Romeo 7, November whisper. Acknowledged. Standing down, but as she watched Target Alpha climb into the truck, she saw something else. Through her scope. Movement on the western ridge. Opposite her position. A glint of metal. A scope. Reflecting the rising sun. Another shooter. Before she could process the implication, a rifle cracked in the distance. Target Alpha jerked sideways, blood spraying across the truck's interior. His bodyguards immediately opened fire toward the western ridge, the wrong direction. Away from Maya's position. The compound exploded into chaos. Men running, shouting, weapons firing in all directions. The convoy trucks tried to reverse out of the compound, crashing into each other in their panic. Maya's radio erupted with voices. November whisper. What the hell just happened? Did you take that shot? Negative. Romeo 7. Shot came from Western Ridge, approximately 2 kilometers from my position. Unknown shooter. Say again? I said I did not take that shot. Someone else is here. The implications crashed through the command net like an avalanche. Another player on the field, another sniper, unaccounted for, operating in the same area. Friendly or hostile, Allied intelligence or foreign operative, private contractor or enemy combatant. Maya scanned the western ridge through her spotting scope, searching for the shooter. But whoever had taken that shot knew their business. They were already gone, dissolved back into the terrain. Through her rifle scope, she confirmed Target Alpha was down, possibly dead. His security team was in full panic mode, firing at shadows. And, somewhere in the chaos, she spotted something that made her blood run cold. American tactical gear. American weapons. American communication equipment. On the wrong people. Romeo 7, November whisper. You need to hear this. The security element at that compound is carrying U.S. military gear. Recent issue. This isn't local Taliban. This is something else. Hollis's voice came back tight with controlled anger. November whisper. Exfil now. Get off that ridge and move to Rally Point Charlie. We're coming to get you. But you need to move now. Maya understood instantly. If the compound security was equipped with American gear, that meant someone had supplied them. Someone with access to military equipment. Someone who knew about this operation. Someone who might know exactly where the Overwatch sniper was positioned. She began breaking down her hide position with speed that sacrificed some concealment for efficiency. 3 minutes to pack critical equipment. Another 2 minutes to erase obvious signs of her presence. Her rifle went into its drag bag. Ready to move. She'd just shouldered her pack when the first mortar round landed 50 meters below her position. The explosion threw rock fragments and dirt into the air. Maya went flat, ears ringing, already calculating trajectory from the crater location. A second round hit 30 meters closer. They were walking fire up the ridge, searching for her exact position. Not random fire. Precision targeting from someone who knew approximately where she'd set up. She keyed her radio while scrambling along the ridge line, staying below the skyline. Romeo 7. November whisper taking indirect fire. Mortars. Walking up the ridge. Someone knows where I am. November whisper. Break contact and exfil. Rally. Point Charlie is 8 kilometers northeast. Can you make it? 8 kilometers through hostile territory, carrying 40 pounds of gear, with an unknown enemy actively hunting her. Maya's mind calculated odds, routes, contingencies. Affirmative. Moving now. She came off the ridge in a controlled slide, using a gully to shield her movement from observation. Behind her, more mortar rounds impacted, systematically destroying her former position. These weren't lucky shots or harassment fire. This was someone with forward observers, with coordinates, with intent. Maya moved through the desert, like a ghost in reverse, fast but careful, using every piece of terrain to mask her movement. The morning sun was rising, which meant losing the cover of darkness but gaining better visibility to spot threats. After 30 minutes of hard movement, she paused in a dry creek bed to catch her breath and assess. Her radio crackled with traffic as Romeo 7 scrambled to adjust their plan, to figure out how an operation had gone from controlled to chaos in the span of minutes. She was about to move again when she heard it. The distinct sound of diesel engines, multiple vehicles, approaching from the south. She climbed the creek bank carefully, just enough to see over the edge. 4 trucks, loaded with armed men, spreading out in a search pattern. They were hunting her specifically. Maya slid back down the bank and keyed her radio. Romeo 7. November whisper. I have multiple vehicles and personnel conducting search operations in my vicinity. They're organized and equipped. This isn't opportunistic, this is a coordinated operation to find me. November whisper. How many? At least 30 personnel visible. Probably more. They're boxing me in, trying to cut off escape routes to the northeast. Rodriguez's voice came through, calm despite the circumstances. Cross, talk to me. What are your options? Maya scanned the terrain, her tactical mind working through scenarios. I can try to slip through their search line, but the terrain doesn't offer much concealment in daylight. I can fort up in a defensive position and wait for exfil. But that means you're flying helicopters into a hot LZ under daylight conditions with enemy forces actively engaged. Or what? She looked at her rifle, then at the high ground to the west. Or I do what they don't expect. Instead of running, I find a position and start making their search operation very expensive. Make them focus on survival instead of searching. November whisper. You are one person against 30+ hostiles. Yes, Master Chief. But I'm a person with a rifle and high ground, they're a bay ground. Crowd in the open. Math works in my favor. A long pause, then Captain Hollis's voice. Cross. I appreciate the confidence. But your mission is to survive and fill, not to single-handedly engage an enemy force. With respect, sir. My mission is to provide Overwatch and eliminate threats to your team. Well, those 30 people down, there are a threat. They're between you and me, and they're equipped to do serious damage. I can reduce that threat significantly before you arrive. Another pause. She could almost hear the calculations happening on the command net, weighing risk against potential gains. Finally. November, whisper, your call. You're on the ground. If you think you can make it work, you're authorized to engage targets of opportunity. But Cross, the moment it goes bad, you break contact and run. Understood? Understood. November. Whisper, moving to engage. Maya scrambled up the western side of the creek bed, working her way to a rocky outcrop that offered both elevation and cover. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it gave her angles on the search line below and made her a difficult target to locate. She set up quickly, muscle memory taking over. Rifle braced, spotting scope positioned, rangefinder ready. She glassed the search element, identifying priority targets. Vehicle-mounted weapons first. Then leaders. Then anyone with communications gear. The first truck had a PKM machine gun mounted in the bed. That was the highest threat. Maya calculated range 780 meters, adjusted for wind and elevation, and settled her crosshairs on the gunner. Her breath steadied. Her finger took up pressure on the trigger, and she remembered every reason she'd left this life behind. The weight of taking human life, the moral calculations that kept her awake at night, the knowledge that every time she squeezed a trigger, she changed the world in ways that couldn't be undone. But she also remembered Danny Reeves, and Charlie Company, and 42 people whose families deserved justice. She fired. The gunner dropped. Before his body hit the truck bed, Maya had already cycled the bolt and shifted aim to the second vehicle's driver. Another shot. The truck swerved violently as the driver slumped over the wheel. Chaos erupted in the search line. Men scattered, diving for cover, weapons firing blindly in multiple directions. They didn't know where the shots came from. They just knew someone was killing them with precision from distance. Maya worked methodically, selecting targets based on threat and opportunity. A man with a radio. A fighter directing others into formation. Someone trying to set up a heavy weapon. She fired 8 rounds in 90 seconds. And the search operation collapsed into a defensive scramble. Then return fire started impacting around her position. Not blind fire, directed fire. From someone who'd spotted her muzzle flash or scope glint. Time to move. Maya packed up quickly and displaced to a new position 50 meters south, using the terrain to mask her movement. The enemy fire continued hitting her old location, which meant they hadn't tracked her displacement. She set up again, faster this time, and resumed engaging. 3 more shots, 3 more hits. The search element was fully pinned, now focused entirely on survival instead of searching. Her radio crackled. November whisper, Romeo 7. We have your position. Coming in from the north with 2 Blackhawks. ETA 12 minutes, can you hold? Affirmative. Target element is suppressed. I can keep them focused on me until you arrive. Negative. Break contact now and move to pickup zone. We'll cover your exfil. Maya fired 1 more shot, a fighter trying to maneuver toward her position, then began her final displacement. She moved fast now. No longer trying to maintain firing positions. Just speed and distance, getting to the extraction point before the enemy could reorganize. She reached the designated pickup zone, a flat area of hard-pan desert with 3 minutes to spare. The sound of helicopter rotors built from the north, growing louder, closer. The Blackhawks came in fast and low. Door gunners, scanning for threats. 1 helicopter landed while the other circled overhead, providing overwatch. Maya sprinted to the open door, hands reaching down to haul her aboard. As the helicopter lifted off, she caught a glimpse of the battlefield she was leaving behind. Multiple vehicles disabled or abandoned. Enemy forces, scattered and disorganized. And somewhere in that chaos, a dead terrorist facilitator who would never hurt anyone else. Mission accomplished, even if not according to plan. Master Chief Rodriguez sat across from her in the helicopter, his expression unreadable. He didn't speak until they were 5 minutes into the flight, far enough from the target area that conversation could happen over the engine noise. That was some impressive shooting, Cross. Thank you, Master Chief. Also some questionable decision-making. Also true. You disobeyed a direct order when the man, Hollis, told you to stand down. Maya met his eyes steadily. I stood down. I didn't take the shot on target Alpha. Someone else did. But you wanted to. Wanting and doing are different things, Master Chief. Rodriguez studied her for a long moment. The second shooter. Any idea who that was? None. Wrong position for any Allied forces. Wrong gear profile. Wrong tactical approach. She paused. But whoever it was, knew exactly where target Alpha would be. Exactly when he'd be vulnerable. That's not luck. That's detailed intelligence. You think it's connected to the American gear you saw on the security force? I think this operation had more players than we knew about. And I think someone wanted Target Alpha dead, but they wanted it to look like our operation went wrong. Maya's voice carried absolute certainty. Someone set us up, Master Chief. The question is why? The helicopter carried them back toward base as the sun climbed higher, turning the desert below into a sea of gold and shadow. And in the cargo bay, surrounded by elite operators who'd just seen her do the impossible, Maya Cross sat with her rifle across her lap and her mind working through implications that made her deeply uneasy. The mission had been a success, but success didn't explain who the second shooter was, or how they'd known the operation details, or why American military equipment had ended up in enemy hands. Questions that would need answers soon. The debrief room at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado felt smaller than it had during the mission brief. Maya sat at the far end of the conference table, her rifle case propped against the wall behind her, still wearing her dusty multicam fatigues. She hadn't showered, hadn't changed. Hollis had pulled her straight from the helicopter into this room, with Rodriguez, Pierce, and 3 other SEAL team leaders she didn't recognize. Captain Hollis stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, expression carved from granite. Let's start with the obvious question. Cross, who was the second shooter? Unknown, sir. I never got visual confirmation. The shot came from approximately 2 kilometers west of my position, from elevated terrain that offered similar sightlines to the compound. Best guess. Maya chose her words carefully. Someone with professional training. The shot was clean. Well executed. From significant range. Not lucky. Not amateur. Could it have been one of ours? CIA, maybe? Another agency running a parallel operation? Possible, but unlikely. If another agency was running Overwatch, they'd have coordinated with us to avoid exactly this kind of confusion. This felt more like, she paused, searching for the right word. Opportunistic. Like someone waiting for the right moment, regardless of what we were doing. Lieutenant Pierce leaned forward. The American gear you reported seeing on the security force. Can you elaborate? Plate carriers. Modern pattern. Consistent. With current military issue. M4 carbines with ACOG optics. Peltor communication headsets. At least 3 individuals were carrying equipment that had no business being in that compound unless someone supplied it intentionally. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implication. American equipment in enemy hands meant either theft, loss, or deliberate transfer. None of those options were good. One of the unfamiliar SEAL officers, his name tape read Morrison, spoke up. Miss Cross, I've reviewed the communication transcripts from your engagement. You killed or wounded an estimated 11 enemy combatants in under 4 minutes. At ranges from 650 to 850 meters, while they were actively maneuvering and returning fire. That's, he paused, searching for words. That's not standard contractor work. No, sir. It's not. So let's stop pretending you're just logistics and Nate. Equipment coordination. Morrison's tone wasn't hostile, just direct. Who are you really? Maya glanced at Captain Hollis, who gave a small nod. Permission to speak freely. She took a slow breath. Sergeant Maya Cross, United States Marine Corps, 2008 to 2013. MOS 0317. Scout Sniper. Served with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, deployed to Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2011 to 2012. Participated in 17 combat operations, confirmed 38 enemy kills at ranges from 400 to 2,100 meters. Her voice stayed level, reciting facts without emotion. Received a Navy Cross for actions during Operation Phantom Talon. Medically retired in 2013 following investigation into the same operation. Pierce's eyes widened. Navy Cross? That's second only to the Medal of Honor. Yes, sir. What happened during Phantom Talon? Morrison asked. Maya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's classified, sir. The operation is classified. Your service record isn't. Morrison pulled out a tablet. Tapping through files. Says here you were part of a joint operation with Marine Force Recon and MARSOC elements. Mission went wrong. You lost most of your team. Investigation followed, and you were cleared of all charges but medically retired anyway. He looked up. What charges? The room waited. Maya's hands rested flat on the table. Fingers spread, perfectly still. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that made everyone lean in slightly. The charges were failure to properly assess threat indicators, failure to communicate critical intelligence, and making tactical decisions that resulted in the deaths of 7 Marines. She paused. All charges were dropped because the evidence showed I did everything correctly. The intelligence we were given was wrong. The threat assessment from command was wrong. I warned them. They didn't listen. And my team died because of it. Rodriguez spoke quietly. But you survived. Yes, Master Chief. I survived. The words hung in the air like an accusation she'd leveled at herself 1,000 times. And your call sign was Phantom. Yes. That's why you have the tattoo. Maya's hand moved unconsciously to her collarbone, then stopped. You saw that. Caught a glimpse when you were setting up at the range. Didn't put it together until I started making calls. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Cross. Everyone in this room has lost people. Most of us carry those names somewhere on our bodies. That's not shame. That's remembrance. With respect, Master Chief, you don't know what I carry. Morrison set down his tablet. Miss Cross. The Navy Cross citation is public record. I pulled it last night, after your range performance made me curious. You want to know what it says? Maya said nothing. Morrison read from his tablet anyway. For extraordinary heroism while serving as Scout Sniper Team Leader during combat operations in Helmand Province, when her unit was ambushed by a numerically superior enemy force. Sergeant Cross maintained her position under intense fire to provide covering fire for her surrounded teammates. Despite being wounded twice, she eliminated 17 enemy combatants and directed air support that allowed the extraction of wounded personnel. Her actions directly saved the lives of 4 Marines who would otherwise have been killed or captured. He looked up. That doesn't sound like someone who failed her team. 4 Marines survived. Maya's voice cracked slightly, the first break in her composure. 7 didn't. The 4. Investigation cleared me, because technically, I followed all procedures. But procedures don't bring back Danny Reeves, or Corporal Martinez, or any of the others who died in that valley because command refused to believe what I was telling them about the threat level. The room absorbed this in. Heavy silence. Finally, Captain Hollis spoke. Cross, why didn't you tell us any of this before? Because it doesn't matter, sir. A Navy Cross doesn't make me more qualified. A tragic deployment doesn't make my shots more accurate. Either I can do the job, or I can't. My history is just history. It matters to us, Pierce said quietly. It matters because trust comes from knowing who we're operating with. You're not just some contractor who happens to shoot well. You're one of us. Your family. Maya looked around the table at these men who, 72 hours ago, had laughed at her suggestion that she was qualified. Their expressions had changed completely. Respect, certainly. But something more. Recognition. The kind that came from shared experience. From understanding what it meant to put your life in someone else's hands and trust they wouldn't let you fall. Rodriguez stood and moved around the table to stand beside her. Without a word, he extended his hand. Maya stood and shook it, her grip firm, steady. Sergeant Cross, Rodriguez said formally, on behalf of SEAL Team 7, thank you for your service today. You saved lives. You performed with exceptional skill under impossible circumstances. And you did it without hesitation when it mattered most. Pierce stood next, then Morrison, then the others. One by one, they shook her hand, offered quiet words of respect and gratitude. Not because she was a woman who'd proven herself, not because she was a contractor who'd exceeded expectations, but because she was a warrior who'd done what warriors do, protect their own at any cost. When the last handshake finished, Hollis remained at the head of the table. Cross, we still have significant questions about what happened out there. The second shooter. The American equipment. The coordination of the enemy response. This is bigger than a simple assassination operation. I need you to work with our intelligence section to piece together what we're dealing with. Of course, sir. But first. Hollis's expression softened marginally. Go. Shower. Get some food. Get some rest. You've earned it. Maya nodded and gathered her gear. As she reached the door, Morrison called out, "Hey, Phantom." She turned. That call sign. It fits. You appeared out of nowhere, took apart a trained enemy force like they were nothing, and disappeared before they knew what hit them. He smiled slightly. You're exactly the kind of ghost we need on our side. Maya allowed herself the smallest hint of a smile. Thank you, sir. She walked out into the hallway, her rifle case over one shoulder, her body exhausted but her mind still racing. The adrenaline was wearing off now, leaving behind the familiar ache of muscles pushed too hard and the deeper ache of memories stirred up by the morning's combat. She was halfway to the parking lot when she heard rapid footsteps behind her. Cross. Wait up. She turned to find a young SEAL she didn't recognize jogging toward her. He couldn't have been more than 25. With the eager energy of someone still new to the teams. Ma'am. I'm Petty Officer Jake Chen. I wasn't in the briefing. But word's already spreading about what you did out there. He paused, suddenly looking uncertain. Is it true you're the Marine sniper they call Phantom? That was a long time ago, but it's true. His eyes were wide, with something close to awe. The stories I've heard. Operation Phantom Talon. The Valley Defense. The Petty Officer Chen. Maya's voice was gentle but firm. Those are just stories. And most stories get bigger in the telling. But you did serve in Helmand. You were a scout sniper. Yes. And you saved your team when they were ambushed. I tried to. Some of them. Chen nodded slowly, processing this. Mom. I just wanted to say. My brother was Army infantry. He deployed to the same province. Same time frame. He used to tell me about the Marine snipers who covered their patrols, who kept them safe when they were moving through bad areas. He never knew their names, but he said those snipers were the reason he made it home. Maya felt something tight in her chest loosened slightly. Your brother made it home because he was well trained and careful. But I'm glad he had good support. He always said the same thing. Snipers are guardian angels you never see until you need them. Chen smiled. Seems like he was right. After Chen left, Maya stood in the Premiser parking lot for a long moment. Keys in hand, staring at nothing in particular. The sun was high now, the California heat building, but she barely felt it. Guardian angels. Danny Reeves used to joke about that. Phantom, you know what you are? You're the angel of death for bad guys and the angel of life for us. You're everyone's favorite kind of angel. She'd laughed, then. Before the ambush. Before the investigation. Before everything fell apart. Now the words just hurt. Maya climbed into her truck and sat with her forehead pressed against the steering wheel, allowing herself exactly 60 seconds of grief. 60 seconds to feel the weight of names she carried, the faces she remembered, the promises she'd made to dead friends. Then she straightened, started the engine, and drove home. Tomorrow, they'd start investigating the mystery of the second shooter and the compromised equipment. Tomorrow, there would be more questions, more complications, more reasons to stay involved in a world she'd tried to leave behind. But tonight, she'd sleep knowing that 4 Navy SEALs were alive, because she'd been in the right place at the right time, with the right skills, and the courage to use them. That had to be enough. Maya's apartment in Imperial Beach was small, sparse, functional. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. The walls were bare, except for a single photograph on the mantel. 8 Marines in desert camouflage, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning despite the dust and heat. Charlie Company, 2 weeks before everything went wrong. She stood in the shower for 20 minutes, letting water hot enough to sting wash away the desert dust and dried sweat. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel, her phone was buzzing with messages. Rodriguez. Debrief continuation tomorrow 0800. Intel section wants to talk. Get some rest. Pierce. Whole team knows now. They're impressed. Hell, I'm impressed. See you tomorrow. An unknown number. This is Morrison. Adding you to the team group chat. Welcome to the circus. And one more. From a number she recognized but hadn't heard from in 2 years. Colonel Marcus Webb, USMC. Her former commanding officer during Phantom Talon. Maya. Heard you're back in the game. Call me when you can. We need to talk. She stared at that last message for a long time before setting the phone down without responding. Sleep came eventually, but it was fractured with dreams. Danny Reeves calling wind corrections. The sound of the IED detonating. The investigation room, with its fluorescent lights and hostile questions, firing at shadows in the desert while an unknown shooter took the shot she'd been ordered not to take. She woke at 0400 out of habit, body refusing to sleep past the hour it had trained itself to rise for years. Rather than fight it, she dressed in running clothes and headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. 5 miles along the beach, pushing hard enough to make thought impossible. Just breathing. Footfalls. The rhythm of waves against sand. When she finished, the sun was rising, and her mind was clear enough to function. Back at her apartment, she finally returned Colonel Webb's call. He answered on the first ring. Cross. Took you long enough. Sir, wasn't sure you'd want to hear from me. Don't be stupid. I've been following your career, such as it is. Logistics coordinator at a Navy base. Really? That's what you're doing with your talents? It's honest work, sir. It's waste. Webb's voice carried the same gruff affection he'd always had for his Marines. But I'm not calling to lecture you about career choices. I'm calling because I heard about yesterday's operation, and I'm calling because I need to tell you something that's going to piss you off. Maya sat down on her couch. I'm listening. Operation Phantom Talon. The ambush that killed most of your team. The investigation that cleared you but destroyed your reputation anyway. Webb paused. That wasn't random bad intelligence, Maya. That was deliberate. The words hit like a physical blow. Sir? I didn't know it at the time. Didn't piece it together. Until years later, when I started seeing patterns. Patterns of operations going wrong at critical moments. Equipment ending up in enemy hands. Intelligence that was just wrong enough to get people killed, but not wrong enough to be obvious sabotage. His voice hardened. Someone inside our chain of command has been compromising operations, feeding information to the enemy. And Phantom Talon was one of their hits. Maya's mind raced, connecting pieces she'd been too close to see before. The second shooter yesterday. The American gear on the security force. Someone knew we were coming. Someone always knows. Maya. Because someone's always telling them. Who? That's what I've been trying to figure out for 2 years. It's not one person. It's a network. Military personnel, private contractors, maybe intelligence community. They're running guns, selling information, playing both sides. And they're good enough that every time we get close, evidence disappears or witnesses end up dead. Maya stood and paced her small living room. Why are you telling me this now? Because yesterday, whoever took that shot on target Alpha, that was them sending a message. They know you're involved now. They know you're dangerous. And Cross. If they decided you're a threat. Webb let the implication hang. They'll come after me. They'll try. Which is why you need to be careful. Watch your back. Trust your instincts. He paused. And Maya. The only way this ends is if we find them before they find you. I've got some leads, some names. But I need someone on the inside at Coronado. Someone with access and skills. Someone they won't see coming. You want me to investigate. I want you to survive. Everything else is secondary. Webb's tone softened slightly. But yes, If you're willing, I could use your help. These bastards killed Danny Reeves and the rest of Charlie Company. Don't you want to make them pay? Maya looked at the photograph on her mantle. 8 faces, 7 of them dead. Danny's smile, frozen in time, before he knew what was coming. Yes, sir. I want to make them pay. Good. I'll send you what I have. Names, patterns, suspicious incidents. You see anything at Coronado that fits, you let me know immediately. Webb's voice carried absolute certainty now. Cross. We're going to find these people. And when we do, they're going to learn why you don't betray Marines. After the call ended, Maya sat in silence, processing everything. The investigation that had ruined her career hadn't been about her failures. It had been about covering up someone else's treason. The deaths of her team hadn't been bad luck or fog of war. They'd been murdered by someone, wearing the same uniform. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted file transfer from Webb. She opened it and began reading. 3 hours later, she arrived at the base for the 0800 debrief with dark circles under her eyes but absolute clarity in her mind. The pieces were starting to fit together, and the fact of viewers' picture they formed was uglier than she'd imagined. The intelligence section conference room was packed. Captain Hollis, Master Chief Rodriguez, Lieutenant Pierce, Morrison, and 3 intelligence analysts she didn't recognize. A large screen on the wall displayed satellite imagery of yesterday's target compound. Hollis gestured to an empty seat. Cross. Glad you could make it. We've been analyzing the footage from yesterday, and we have some interesting findings. One of the analysts, a thin man with glasses named Patterson, pulled up a series of enhanced images. These are from the drone, to feed during the operation. We've been tracking equipment signatures, trying to identify the American gear you reported. The images showed compound security forces in detail, plate carriers with specific marking patterns, weapons with serial numbers just barely visible in the high-resolution footage. We ran those serial numbers. Patterson continued. 3 of the M4 carbines you saw were reported stolen from a supply depot in Kuwait 2 years ago. The plate carriers match a batch that went missing from a logistics contractor in Afghanistan around the same time. Stolen equipment ending up in enemy hands isn't unusual, Morrison said. But the pattern bothers me. These thefts happened at different times, different locations. But all the equipment ends up in the same compound. Someone's collecting it, distributing it. Maya leaned forward. What about the second shooter? Patterson pulled up more imagery. This is thermal from the drone. Approximately 90 seconds after Target Alpha was killed. Western Ridge. Your estimated location of the second shooter. The screen showed a heat signature, a person moving rapidly away from the shooting position, using terrain to mask their movement. The figure moved with professional efficiency, never silhouetting against the skyline, using every piece of cover. We tracked them for about 800 meters before they reached a vehicle. By the time we could redirect for a better look, they were gone. Patterson zoomed in on the last clear image. But we did get this. The image showed a figure in mixed military clothing, carrying a long rifle case. The resolution was too poor to see facial features, but something about the posture, the movement pattern, triggered recognition in Maya's memory. She stared at the image for a long moment, then spoke slowly. I know that movement pattern. The way they're carrying their weight, the way they clear corners. That's Marine Corps training. Rodriguez looked at her sharply. You're sure? Each branch teaches slightly different tactical movement. The way this person moves, the way they prioritize cover selection. That's Marine Corps Scout Sniper doctrine. I'd bet my life on it. The room fell silent. Finally, Hollis spoke. So we have American military equipment in enemy hands. A professionally trained shooter, possibly a Marine taking shots in our Taller operational area without authorization, and a dead terrorist who was supposed to be our target. He looked around the room. Anyone want to tell me how this isn't a massive security breach? It's worse than a breach, sir. Maya pulled out her phone and forwarded Webb's encrypted file to the secure conference room system. I received information this morning from Colonel Marcus Webb, USMC. He's been investigating a pattern of compromised operations over the past several years. Equipment thefts, intelligence leaks, friendly forces ending up in ambushes with impossible odds. She pulled up Webb's data on the main screen. Operation Phantom Talon, which killed most of my team in 2012. Operation Pale Horse, which got 4 Army Rangers killed in 2013. Operation Dagger Strike, which led to the capture and torture of 2 SEALs in 2014. She looked around the room. All of these operations were compromised. All of them resulted in American casualties. And all of them show the same pattern. Someone with inside information, feeding details to the enemy. Patterson's face had gone pale. You're saying there's a network? Inside our own command structure? Not just command. Contractors, logistics personnel, possibly intelligence community. Anyone with access to operational details. Maya brought up another file, and based on what happened yesterday, I think they know we're on to them. The second shooter wasn't there to kill Target Alpha. They were there to send a message. We can compromise your operations anytime we want. Rodriguez stood and moved to the screen, studying the data. If this is true, we can't trust normal channels. Anyone we report this to could be part of the network. Colonel Webb is working this from the Marine Corps side, Maya said. He's got allies in NCIS and a few trusted officers. But he needs someone here, at Coronado, watching for signs of compromise. Hollis looked at her steadily. And he wants you to be that someone. Yes, sir. Cross, you're a contractor. You don't have the authority or clearance to conduct an internal SAID investigation. No, sir. But I have the skills to watch, listen, and report what I see. And I have something else. She met his eyes. I'm expendable. If this network figures out what I'm doing and tries to silence me, it won't compromise your unit or command structure. It'll just be a contractor who met with an unfortunate accident. That's not, Pierce started. That's exactly how they'll play it. Maya interrupted. And I'm okay with that risk. These people killed my team. They've killed dozens of operators over the years. If I can help stop them, I don't care what it costs me. Personally, the room absorbed this in heavy silence. Finally, Morrison spoke. Captain, with respect, I think we need to read the rest of the team in on this. If there's a security threat to our operations, they deserve to know. Hollis nodded slowly. Agreed. But we keep this tight. Team, leadership only, until we know who we can trust. He looked at Maya. Cross, you're officially hired as a tactical consultant to our unit. It's a real position, covers your expanded access, and gives you legitimate reasons to be in planning sessions and equipment briefings. You watch for anything. Suspicious personnel asking unusual questions. Equipment going missing. Operational details leaking. Anything. Yes, sir. And Cross. Hollis's expression was serious. If this network is as dangerous as Webb believes, they won't hesitate to eliminate threats. You're putting a target on your back. Maya thought about Danny Reeves, about the 7 other faces in that photograph, about every operator who died because someone betrayed them for money or ideology or whatever motivation justified treason in their minds. Good, she said quietly. Let them come. I've been running from ghosts for 2 years. Maybe it's time. I turned around and faced them. Word spread through SEAL Team 7 like wildfire through dry brush. By 1400, every operator in the unit knew 3 things. The logistics contractor was actually a Marine Corps scout sniper with a Navy cross. She single-handedly suppressed an enemy force to enable their extraction, and she was now hunting a traitor somewhere in their chain of command. Maya was in the armory, conducting a routine equipment inspection that was actually a cover for checking serial numbers against Webb's list of stolen gear. When the first group arrived, 4 SEALs, including Petty Officer Chen from yesterday, filed in and stood at a respectful distance until she acknowledged them. Help you gentlemen with something? Chen stepped forward, the others behind him. Ma'am, we heard what you did yesterday. All of it. The shots, the suppression, the exfil under fire. He paused. We also heard about Phantom Talon. About what you lost. Maya set down her clipboard. Ancient history. Petty officer. No, ma'am. It's not. Chen's voice carried absolute conviction. What you did then, what you're doing now. That's the definition of service. Putting the mission and your team above everything else, even when the cost is more than anyone should have to pay. One of the other SEALs, a burly operator named Garcia, spoke up. Ma'am, we've all lost people. All of us have names we carry. But you didn't let those losses break you. You came back. You're still fighting. He paused. That's what warriors do. Maya felt something in her chest tighten. These men didn't know her, not really. They knew stories and service records, and one day's combat performance, but they recognized something deeper. The invisible weight every combat veteran carried. The names of the dead. The choices that haunted you at 0300 when you couldn't sleep. I appreciate that, she said quietly. But I'm just doing my job. So are we, Chen said. And part of our job is recognizing excellence when we see it. Ma'am. With your permission, he came to attention, his spine straightening, his hand rising in a crisp salute. The other three followed instantly. 4 Navy SEALs, elite operators who'd earned their tridents through the hardest training pipeline in the military. Standing at attention and saluting a contractor. Civilian clothes, because they recognized what she truly was, one of their own. Maya felt her throat tighten. She returned the salute, holding it for a long moment before dropping her hand. Thank you, she managed. Truly. Chen lowered his hand but didn't relax. Ma'am, if you need anything and, I mean anything for this investigation or whatever comes next, you tell us. We've got your back. They filed out, leaving Maya alone in the armory with tears she refused to let fall. That was just the beginning. Over the next 4 hours, a steady stream of visitors found her. Some came individually, others in small groups. Some offered quiet words of respect. Others shared their own stories of loss and survival. A few just stood nearby for a moment in silent acknowledgement before moving on. By 1800, when she finally left the base, Maya understood something that had eluded her for 2 years. She'd never actually left the military family. She'd just been hiding from it, afraid that letting people get close meant risking more loss. But these men, these warriors who faced death regularly and understood its cost, they weren't scared off by her history or her pain. They recognized it, shared it, honored it. The next morning, she arrived at 0700 for a routine briefing and found something unexpected in her assigned parking spot. A small plaque, obviously custom-made, propped against the parking curb. Reserved for Phantom, Guardian Angel, SEAL Team 7 Honorary Member. Maya picked it up, running her fingers over the engraved letters. Her vision blurred slightly. Figured you needed something official. She turned to find Master Chief Rodriguez, approaching with coffee cups. Master Chief, I'm not actually a SEAL. I can't accept, can't you? Rodriguez handed her a coffee. Cross. There's what the paperwork says. And then there's what's true. The paperwork says you're a contractor. The truth is, you're a warrior who saved lives when it mattered most. The paperwork says you're not part of the team. The truth is, you've earned your place here through blood and courage. He gestured to the plaque. That's not about what uniform you wear. It's about who you are when everything goes to hell. Maya looked at the plaque again, then at Rodriguez. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just accept it. Accept that you belong here. Accept that these men trust you and respect you. Rodriguez's expression softened. And maybe accept that it's okay to trust them back. She nodded slowly, unable to form words past the lump in her throat. Good. Now finish your coffee and get inside. We've got a briefing in 10 minutes. And you need to see what we found overnight. The briefing room was packed when they arrived. Not just Team 7 leadership, but operators from across the squadron, intelligence analysts, and surprisingly 2 NCIS agents Maya didn't recognize. Captain Hollis stood at the front with a grim expression. People, we have a situation. Last night, Our intelligence section received an anonymous tip about suspicious activity in the logistics supply chain. Acting on that tip, NCIS executed a search warrant on a storage facility in San Diego. He pulled up photographs on the main screen. Warehouse. Interior. Row after row of military equipment. Weapons. Body armor. Communications gear. Night vision devices. All neatly organized. Cataloged. Ready for distribution. This warehouse contained approximately $2 million worth of stolen U.S. military equipment. Serial numbers match theft. Reports from the past 3 years across multiple theaters. Hollis's voice was tight with controlled anger. This is the distribution point. This is where stolen gear was being staged before being shipped to the highest bidder. One of the NCIS agents, a sharp-eyed woman named Diaz, stepped forward. We're still processing evidence, but we've already identified equipment from 18 separate theft incidents. Some of this gear was reported stolen from forward operating bases in Afghanistan, some from supply depots in Europe, some from training facilities stateside. Who owns the Foles warehouse? Morrison asked. That's where it gets interesting, Diaz said. The warehouse is leased to a company called Sentinel Logistics Solutions. That company has contracts with the Department of Defense for equipment maintenance and redistribution. Maya felt ice settle in her stomach. They had legitimate access. They could move equipment without raising suspicion. Exactly. And Sentinel Logistics has offices at 7 military installations, including Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Diaz pulled up more data. We're currently investigating all personnel with access to those personnel facilities. What about the anonymous tip? Rodriguez asked. Who sent it? Unknown. Came through an encrypted channel that we're still trying to trace. But whoever sent it knew exactly what we'd find and where to look. Diaz glanced at Maya. Miss Cross, given your involvement in yesterday's operation and your subsequent investigation work, we'd like to interview you about what you saw. Of course. One more thing. Hollis pulled up a new image, the thermal footage of the second shooter from yesterday's operation. NCIS has been analyzing this footage with advanced enhancement. Show them, Agent Diaz. Diaz worked the controls, bringing up a cleaned and enhanced version of the image. The figure was clearer now. Details more visible. Height. Build. The way they carried their weapon. And on their right shoulder, just barely visible in the thermal imaging. A patch. A unit. Insignia. Maya leaned forward, studying it closely. Her blood went cold. That's 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, she said quietly. That's Charlie Company. The room went silent. That's your old unit, Pierce said. The same unit from Phantom Talon. Yes. Maya's mind was racing. How many breed people survived that operation? Rodriguez pulled up a file on his tablet. According to the records, 4. You and 3 others who were wounded and evacuated early. I need those names. Cross. Master Chief. If someone from my old unit is working with this network, if they're using what they learned in Charlie Company to compromise operations. She couldn't finish the thought. The betrayal was too deep, too personal. Rodriguez handed her the tablet. 3 names, 3 faces she remembered with crystal clarity. Sergeant Marcus Stone, wounded by shrapnel, evacuated 2 days before the ambush. Corporal Lisa Mendez, gunshot wound, evacuated 1 day before the ambush. Lance Corporal Ryan Hayes, concussion and broken arm, evacuated 3 days before the ambush. All 3 evacuated just before the operation went wrong. All 3 alive when everyone else died. It's not coincidence, Maya said. Someone knew that operation was compromised. Someone got themselves evacuated before it fell apart. That's speculation, Hollis said carefully. No, sir. It's pattern recognition. Maya stood, her mind working through implications. Colonel Webb was right. This isn't just equipment theft. It's systematic betrayal by someone who knows how operations work, who knows how to recognize good targets, who has the training to operate in hostile territory. Agent Diaz made notes rapidly. Miss Cross, We'll need you to provide detailed information about these 3 individuals. Background, capabilities, last known locations. I can do better than that. Maya pulled out her phone and composed a text to Colonel Webb. Need immediate background checks on 3 names. Priority, current locations and employment. The response came back in less than 2 minutes. Already on it. We'll have answers by end of day. The briefing continued for another hour, diving into logistics of the investigation, security protocols, and operational security measures to prevent further compromises. But Maya's mind was elsewhere, running through memories of Stone, Mendez, and Hayes. Good Marines, all of them. Solid operators who'd earned their places in Charlie Company. Or so she'd thought. After the briefing, as people filed out, Morrison caught her arm. "Cross, you okay?" "Honestly? No." She looked at him directly. "If one of my own people killed Danny Reeves and the way others, if someone I trained with, someone I trusted, betrayed us all." She shook her head. "I don't know how to process that. One step at a time. First we verify the facts. Then we make sure they face justice." Morrison's expression was hard. "And Cross, when we find them, and we will find them, they're going to learn that betraying warriors comes with consequences." Maya nodded. But inside, she felt something cold and sharp forming. Not rage. Exactly. Something colder. More calculated. Whoever had killed her team. Whoever had spent years betraying operations and getting Americans killed. They'd made one critical mistake. They'd let her live. And now she was coming for them. The call came at 2300 that night. Maya was at home, lying awake despite exhaustion, her mind refusing to shut down. When her phone buzzed with Colonel Webb's number, she answered immediately. "Webb." "Maya, we found them." His voice carried grim satisfaction. "All 3. And you're not going to like what we discovered." She sat up, fully alert. "Tell me." Marcus Stone is working as a private security contractor in Dubai. High-end clients. Diplomatic protection. Makes about $300,000 a year. Lives in a luxury apartment, drives a Mercedes. On a contractor's salary? That's what caught our attention. His financials show deposits that don't match his contract work. We're talking an additional $500,000 over the past 2 years from shell companies we can't trace. Maya's jaw tightened. What about the others? Lisa Mendez is working for Sentinel Logistics Solutions. The words hit like a physical blow. The same company that owns the warehouse full of stolen equipment. The very same. She's listed as a regional logistics coordinator. Has access to multiple military installations. Handles equipment transfers. Maintains security clearances. Webb paused. And Ryan Hayes? He's officially retired on medical disability. Unofficially, he's been spotted in Afghanistan, Syria, and Yemen over the past 18 months. Always in areas where American operations were subsequently compromised. Maya stood and paced her small apartment. They're all involved. All 3 of them. It looks that way. But Maya, there's more. We pulled communications records for the days leading up to Phantom Talon. Mendez sent an encrypted message to an unknown recipient 12 hours before the operation launched. The encryption is sophisticated, but our analysts think they can break it. 12 hours before. Maya's voice was hollow. She warned them. She told the enemy we were coming. We believe so. And we believe she arranged her own evacuation, claimed severe stomach pains, got herself medically pulled so she wouldn't be there when it went bad. Maya sat back down heavily, her hands shaking with rage she could barely contain. She killed them. Stone, Mendez, Hayes, they killed Danny and the others for money. We don't have proof yet. Not enough for proof. A prosecution. But Maya. NCIS is moving fast. They're building cases against all 3. Mendez is on U.S. soil, which makes her the priority target. Webb's tone shifted. They're planning to arrest her tomorrow morning. I thought you should know. Where? Maya, where is she? A long pause. She lives in Oceanside. 30 minutes from Coronado. But you can't. I'm not going to do anything stupid, Colonel. Maya's voice cracked slightly. I just need to see her. Need to look her in the eye, and know that the person I trusted, the person I would have died for, sold us all out. Maya, if you confront her before NCIS makes their arrest, you could compromise the entire case. I won't confront her. I need to see for myself. That's all. Webb was quiet for a long moment. I'm texting you an address. But Maya, I'm trusting you not to do anything that'll blow this investigation. We're so close to getting justice for Danny and the others. Don't throw it away. I won't. I promise. After he hung up, Maya sat in the darkness of her apartment, staring at the address Webb had sent. Tomorrow morning, NCIS would arrest Lisa Mendez. Tomorrow, one of the present people responsible for killing her team would face justice. But tonight, Maya needed answers that no court could provide. She grabbed her keys. Oceanside, at midnight, was quiet. The streets mostly empty except for occasional cars and late-night pedestrians. Maya parked 3 blocks from the address. Webb had provided a modest apartment complex that looked nothing like the lifestyle of someone making illegal money on the side. She sat in her truck for a long time, watching the building, trying to understand how it had come to this. How someone she'd served with, someone she'd trusted with her life, had become a traitor. Movement caught her eye. A figure emerged from the apartment building side entrance, moving quickly, carrying a duffel bag. Even in the dim streetlight, Maya recognized the gait, the posture. Lisa Mendez. She was running. Maya's mind calculated instantly. NCIS wasn't planning to arrest her until morning, but somehow Mendez knew. Someone had tipped her off. Someone inside the investigation. The network was bigger than they'd thought. Mendez climbed into a Honda Civic and pulled out of the parking lot, heading south. Maya waited 5 seconds, then followed, keeping her distance. Basic surveillance. Nothing fancy. Just tracking where a traitor was running to. They drove for 20 minutes, eventually pulling into an industrial area near the port. Mendez parked behind a warehouse, got out with her duffel, and walked to a side door. She knocked twice, paused, knocked 3 more times. A signal. The door opened. Mendez disappeared inside. Maya parked in the shadows and considered her options. The smart move was to call NCIS. Report Mendez's location. Let them handle the arrest. The safe move was to stay in her truck and just observe. But Maya was tired of being smart and safe. She pulled out her phone and texted Rodriguez. Found Mendez. She's running. Warehouse near the port. She sent the address. Then added, going to recon. If you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, send backup. Rodriguez's reply came immediately. Do not engage. Wait for backup. Maya read the message, then put her phone on silent and stepped out of her truck. The warehouse had minimal external lighting, which worked in her favor. She moved along the perimeter, staying in shadows, using techniques drilled into her through years of training. She found a window on the west side, partially covered but with enough gap to see inside. 3 people were visible. Mendez, obviously, and 2 men Maya didn't recognize, both military age, both moving with the controlled precision of trained operators. And there, standing with his back to the window, a 4th figure, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket despite the mild temperature. He turned, and Maya's breath caught. Sergeant Marcus Stone. She'd known intellectually that he was involved. But seeing him here, in the flesh, meeting with Mendez in a secret warehouse, made it real in a way that files and evidence never could. She couldn't hear what they were saying through the glass, but their body language spoke volumes. Urgent conversation. Mendez gesturing emphatically. Stone pointing at documents spread across a table. Planning something. Coordinating. Maya pulled out her phone and started recording video through the window. Not admissible in court probably, but documentation nonetheless. Evidence that she'd found them, that they were together, that the betrayal was real. She was so focused on recording that she almost missed the sound behind her. Almost. Maya spun. Her hand, instinctively reaching for a weapon she wasn't carrying. Contractors didn't walk around, armed off-duty. She found herself facing one of the men from inside the warehouse, now standing 10 feet away with a pistol pointed at her chest. "Don't move." His voice was calm, professional. "Hands where I can see them." Maya raised her hands slowly. "I'm unarmed. I can see that. But you're also recording my employers, which is a problem." He gestured with the pistol. "Inside." Slowly. Maya calculated odds and angles. She could try to disarm him, she had the training, but at 10 feet with his weapon already drawn, the math didn't work in her favor. Not good odds of surviving. So she walked to the door, the gunman following at a careful distance, and stepped inside the warehouse. 3 more weapons immediately pointed at her. Mendez's face went pale when she saw who the intruder was. "Maya?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Hey, Lisa." Maya kept her hands visible, her posture non-threatening despite the rage burning in her chest. "Long time no see." Stone turned fully now, and Maya saw his expression shift from surprise to calculation. He studied her for a long moment, then gestured to the others to lower their weapons. "Maya Cross. Phantom herself." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Have to admit, I didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd given up the life. Gone soft with your contractor job. Turns out I'm not as soft as people think." Clearly. Stone gestured to a chair. "Sit. We should talk." "I'd rather stand." It wasn't a request. His tone hardened. "Sit down." Maya considered refusing, considered forcing a confrontation right now. But she was unarmed, outnumbered 4 to 1, and backup was still 20 minutes out minimum. So she sat, keeping her back straight, her expression neutral. Stone pulled up another chair and sat facing her, close enough to be conversational but far enough to stay outside her strike range. Professional distance from someone who understood combat. "So," he said casually, "how much do you know?" "Enough. I know about the equipment theft. I know about Sentinel logistics. I know you've been compromising operations for years." Maya's voice stayed level. "I know you got Danny and the others killed." Mendez flinched at that, but Stone's expression didn't change. "Phantom Talon." He said it like he was discussing the weather. "That was unfortunate. Collateral damage in a larger operation." Collateral damage. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. "They were Marines. They were our brothers. And you sold them out for money. For survival." Stone leaned forward. "Maya, you think we had a choice? You think the Corps takes care of its own after they break us?" Mendez has chronic pain from her wounds, can barely afford medication on her disability check. Hayes has PTSD so bad he can't hold a normal job. And me? He gestured to himself. "I've got shrapnel in my spine that'll never come out, and a medical retirement that pays barely enough to live on. So you became traders. We became entrepreneurs." Stone's voice was cold now. "The military used us, broke us, then threw us away. We just found a way to make that experience profitable. By getting Americans killed. By providing information to people willing to pay for it. What they do with that information isn't our responsibility." Maya stared at him, trying to reconcile this cold, calculating man with the Marine she'd served alongside. "You really believe that? You really think you can wash your hands of every operator who died because of what you sold?" "I sleep fine at night." Stone's smile was cruel. "Better than you do, I'd bet. Still seeing Danny's face when you close your eyes? Still wondering if you could have saved them?" Maya's hands clenched, but she forced her voice to stay calm. "The difference between us, Marcus, is that I tried to save them. You killed them deliberately. I gave them the same chance everyone gets in war. Some people live. Some people die. That's the game. It's not a game when someone's cheating." Maya shifted her gaze to Mendez. "Lisa, tell me something. When you sent that encrypted message 12 hours before Phantom Talon, when you warned the enemy we were coming, did you think about what would happen? Did you picture Danny bleeding out, Did you imagine Martinez calling for help that never came? Mendez's eyes were wet now. I didn't know it would go that bad. They said they'd just avoid contact. That nobody would get hurt. Shut up, Lisa. Stone's voice cracked like a whip. They're dead because of us. Mendez's voice broke. 7 Marines died because I sent a message for $5,000. $5,000. Marcus. That's what Danny's or Consoval life was worth. That's what. Stone moved fast, grabbing Mendez by the arm. I said shut up. Let her talk. Maya's voice cut through the tension. Let her say it out loud. Let her admit what she did. Why? Stone released Mendez and turned back to Maya. So you can feel morally superior? So you can tell yourself you're better than us? Newsflash. Phantom. You're not. You killed people too. 38 confirmed kills. According to your record. How many of those had families? How many had kids waiting at home? Every single one of them was an enemy combatant actively fighting against American forces. Not one was betrayed by someone they trusted. Semantics. Stone waved dismissively. Dead is dead. The method doesn't matter. Maya looked around the warehouse at Stone's cold indifference. At Mendez's guilt-ridden tears. At the 2 hired guns watching with professional detachment. This was what betrayal looked like. Not dramatic or cinematic. Just cold, calculated, wrapped in justifications that couldn't hide the rot underneath. You're wrong, she said quietly. The method matters. The trust matters. The brotherhood matters. And you 3 destroyed all of it for better money. Stone stood abruptly. This conversation is boring. And you're a problem we need to solve. He looked at one of the gunmen. Take her out back. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. The man nodded and moved toward Maya. This was it. The moment where she either fought or died. Maya's mind calculated with crystalline clarity. 4 opponents, only one immediately close. The gunman approaching from her right side, weapon in a low-ready position. Stone 5 feet away, no visible weapon. Mendez, unarmed and emotionally compromised. The second gunman near the door, weapon holstered. Not impossible odds. Just very, very bad ones. The gunman reached for her arm. Maya moved. She shot upward from the chair, her left hand striking the gunman's wrist to divert the weapon while her right hand drove into his throat. Not enough to kill, she wasn't a murderer, but enough to make him gag and stumble back. She grabbed his weapon, twisted it free, and had it pointed at Stone before he could react. Don't. Her voice was absolutely calm. Everybody stay exactly where you are. Stone froze, hands slightly raised. The second gunman by the door reached for his weapon. But Maya shifted, her aim toward him. Don't make me shoot you. I don't want to. But I will. He froze too. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. The only sound was the first gunman wheezing and trying to recover his breath. Then, sirens erupted outside. Multiple vehicles, coming fast. Maya allowed herself a small smile. That's NCIS. I sent my location before I came in. They're a little early, but I'm not complaining. Stone's face went dark with rage. You were stalling. This whole conversation was just stalling, partially. But I also needed to hear you say it. Needed to hear you admit what you did. Maya gestured to her phone, still recording on the table where the first gunman had placed it. Got every word. Your confession. Your justification. Your order to kill me. All documented. Mendez sobbed openly now. Maya, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted. Save it for the trial. The warehouse. Doors exploded inward. NCIS agents flooded in. Weapons drawn. Voices shouting commands. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Get on the ground. Maya slowly placed her acquired pistol on the floor and raised her hands. Maya Cross. I'm a friendly. I'm complying. Agent Diaz moved through the chaos, her weapon trained on Stone. Marcus Stone. Lisa Mendez. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit treason, theft of government property, and accessory to murder of U.S. military personnel. As agents swarmed the suspects, securing weapons and applying handcuffs, Maya stepped back against the wall and watched it unfold. Stone fought the handcuffs, shouting about his rights. Mendez collapsed entirely, needing 2 agents to hold her upright. The hired gunmen surrendered without resistance, professionals who knew when they'd lost. Rodriguez appeared at Maya's side, breathing hard from running. Jesus Christ. Cross. When I said don't engage, what part of that was unclear? The part where I let traitors escape? Maya's voice was shaky now that the adrenaline was fading. They were running, Master Chief. If I'd waited, they'd be gone. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. She met his eyes. And now they're in custody. Now Danny and the others can have justice. Rodriguez looked like he wanted to argue, then just shook his head. You're going to give me a heart attack. You know that? Get in line. I think Captain Hollis has dibs. As if summoned, Hollis appeared in the warehouse entrance, his expression thunderous. He walked straight to Maya, and for a moment she thought he might actually yell at her. Instead, he surprised her. That was the most reckless, dangerous, idiotic thing I've seen an operator do in 20 years of service. He paused. It was also incredibly brave and effective. Good work, Cross. Maya blinked. Sir, don't get me wrong. We're going to have a serious conversation about following orders and not conducting solo operations. But right now, I'm just glad you're alive. He glanced at the suspects, being loaded into NCIS vehicles. These the ones responsible for Phantom Talon? 2 of them. The third, Ryan Hayes, is overseas. But Webb's people are coordinating with international partners to bring him in. Good. Hollis's voice was ice. They're going to spend the rest of their lives in military prison. And every operator who ever served is going to know exactly what they did and why. Agent Diaz approached with Maya's phone. Miss Cross, I need to secure this as evidence. The recording you made is going to be critical to our prosecution. It's all yours. Also, I need a full statement. Everything that happened, from the moment you arrived until we entered. Can you do that now? Or do you need medical attention first? Maya looked down at herself. Her knuckles were scraped from the brief fight, and her shoulder ached from the sudden movement. But nothing serious. I'm fine. Let's get the statement done. The next 3 hours blurred together. Statement to NCIS. Statement to base security. Statement to Hollis for his operational report. She repeated the same story over and over, walking them through every detail from the moment she'd spotted Mendez running to the final confrontation in the Phylon warehouse. By the time they released her, the sun was rising over Coronado, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maya walked out of the NCIS building to find half of SEAL Team 7 waiting in the parking lot. Rodriguez stood at the front of the group. When she emerged, he called out, "Attention!" 28 Navy SEALs snapped to attention in perfect unison. Maya stopped, confused. "Master Chief, what?" "Sergeant Maya Cross. Call sign Phantom." Rodriguez's voice carried across the parking lot. "For extraordinary courage and devotion to duty in the face of extreme danger. For pursuing justice on behalf of fallen warriors. For demonstrating the highest standards of military excellence and personal honor." He raised his hand in salute. 28 other hands followed. Maya felt her breath catch. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't required. This was something deeper, the respect of warriors who recognized one of their own, who understood what she'd risked and why. She returned the salute, holding it as long as they held theirs. When their hands finally dropped, Lieutenant Pierce stepped forward. "Cross, we wanted you to know something." The team took a steadiness vote. Unanimous decision. He held out a small box. "This is for you." She opened it slowly. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a Navy SEAL trident. The golden eagle clutching a trident, pistol, and anchor. The most iconic symbol in special operations. "We can't make you an actual SEAL," Pierce said. "That's not possible without going through Bud's. But this is an honorary trident, commissioned by the team, approved by command. You're one of us, Cross. You've proven that beyond any doubt." Maya's vision blurred. I can't. You can. You will. Rodriguez's voice was gentle but firm. Phantom, you've earned this 10 times over. Accept it. Wear it. Let it remind you that you're never alone. You've got a family here. She took the trident with shaking hands, feeling the weight of it. The significance. Not just a piece of metal, but a symbol of brotherhood, of belonging, of home. Thank you. She whispered. All of you. Thank you. Chen stepped forward from the group. Ma'am, there's one more thing. He gestured behind him, where a tarp covered something large. We had this made last night. Emergency rush order. Figured it was appropriate. 2 SEALs pulled the tarp away, revealing a memorial plaque made of brushed steel. In memory of Charlie Company. 2 7th Marines. Operation Phantom Talon. Never forget the fallen. Below that, 7 names. Danny Reeves, at the top, the others following. And at the bottom, an inscription. Justice delayed is not justice denied. For Phantom, who never stopped fighting. Semper Fi. Maya's carefully maintained composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she stepped forward to touch the plaque, her fingers tracing Danny's name. We're installing it in the team room, Rodriguez said quietly. So everyone who serves with Team 7 will know the story. Will know what happens to traitors. Will know that we take care of our own. Even years later. Maya couldn't speak. Could only nod, her hand still pressed against her best friend's name. The SEALs gave her space, let her grieve and process without interruption. They understood. Every one of them carried names, carried losses, carried the weight of survival. This was just her moment to finally, truly, let it out. After a long time, she turned back to face them. Her eyes were red, her face wet with tears, but her voice was steady. Danny Reeves would have loved you guys. All of you. She smiled through the tears. He always said SEALs were just Marines who couldn't handle the real work. But he would have been proud to call you brothers. Laughter rippled through the group. The good kind. The kind that honored memory rather than diminishing it. We'll mount this plaque with honor, Hollis said, appearing from the building behind her. And, Cross, I've been authorized to offer you a permanent position as Team 7's tactical consultant. Real job. Full benefits. Security clearance restored. You interested? Maya looked around at these men who'd welcomed her, believed in her, stood with her through danger and doubt. Men who understood what it meant to serve, to sacrifice, to carry the weight of fallen friends. Yes, sir, she said. I'm very interested. Good. Report Monday at 0800. We've got new operators joining the team, and I want you to teach them long-range precision work. Hollis smiled slightly. Figure the best sniper I've ever seen should pass that knowledge along. I'd be honored, sir. As the group began to disperse, heading to breakfast at the team's favorite restaurant, Rodriguez lingered beside Maya. You did it, he said, quietly. You got justice for your team. You exposed the traitors. You proved yourself to everyone who ever doubted you. We did it, Maya corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without Team 7 backing me up. That's what family does. Rodriguez gestured to the sunrise. New day, Phantom. New chapter. You ready? Maya looked east, where the sun climbed higher, driving away the shadows. In her hand, the SEAL trident caught the light, gleaming gold. On the plaque behind her, 7 names stood eternal. No longer just loss, but legacy. Yeah, she said softly. I'm ready. 6 months later, the rifle range at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado was packed with students, 12 new SEALs fresh from Bud's. Eager to learn precision marksmanship from one of the best snipers in the community. Maya walked the line, stopping behind each shooter to observe their form, their breathing, their technique. She wore multi-cam fatigues now. No longer contractor khakis. Her tactical consultant badge sat beside her honorary SEAL trident on her chest. Martinez, your breathing is off. You're holding too long before the shot. Breathe naturally. Squeeze during the pause. Try again. The young SEAL adjusted, Fired, and this time hit center mass at 800 meters. Better. Remember, it's not about holding your breath forever. It's about finding the natural pause in your respiratory cycle. Use it. Don't fight it. She moved to the next shooter. Chen, nice grouping. But you're anticipating recoil slightly. I can see your shoulder tensing before you fire. Relax. Let the rifle surprise you. This was her life now. Teaching the next generation. Passing forward the skills Danny Reeves and Charlie Company had helped her develop. Making sure their legacy lived on. Through every operator she trained. Master Chief Rodriguez appeared beside her, watching the line of shooters. How's the new class? Eager. Raw. But they've got potential. Maya smiled. Give me 6 weeks and they'll be making shots they think are impossible right now. That's what we're counting on. Rodriguez handed her a tablet. New mission brief came in. Intelligence suggests another equipment theft ring operating out of Germany. They want your assessment. Maya scrolled through the brief. Her trained eyes catching details others might miss. Patterns. Inconsistencies. Red flags that suggested something more than simple theft. This isn't random, she said. Look at the timing. Look at the equipment types. Someone's building a specific capability. That's not opportunistic theft, that's deliberate acquisition for a planned operation. Can you build a threat assessment? Already writing it in my head. I'll have it to you by end of day. Good. Because Captain Hollis wants you on the investigation team. Might require travel to Germany for on-site assessment. Maya looked at the student shooters. Then back at Rodriguez. What about the class? Lieutenant Pierce can take over instruction for a few weeks. You taught him your methods, he's qualified. Rodriguez's expression was serious. Maya, you're too valuable to limit to just teaching. We need your analytical mind, your investigative skills, your ability to see patterns others miss. Sounds like I'm becoming a full-time investigator. Would that be so bad? Maya considered this. 6 months ago, she'd been hiding in a logistics job, running from her past. Now she was teaching, investigating, actively contributing to the fight against the networks that betrayed American operators. No, she said finally. It wouldn't be bad at all. 1 year later, the ceremony took place in the Team 7 compound, where the memorial plaque for Charlie Company had been mounted prominently in the main room. 50 people packed the space active SEALs, retired operators, command, staff, and several Marines Maya had served with years ago. Colonel Marcus Webb stood at the front in his dress blues, his chest covered in ribbons earned over 30 years of service. Beside him, Captain Hollis held a wooden box. Ladies and gentlemen, Webb began. We're here today to recognize exceptional service in the pursuit of justice. Over the past year, the investigation into equipment theft and operational compromises has resulted in 43 arrests across 6 countries. A network that had been operating for nearly a decade has been dismantled, saving countless American lives. He gestured to Maya, who stood at attention in her own dress uniform. Sergeant Maya Cross, call sign Phantom, led this investigation with extraordinary skill, courage, and dedication. Her work identified patterns that traditional intelligence had missed. Her courage in confronting traitors put her own life at risk. And her teaching has trained a new generation of precision marksmen who will carry forward the highest standards of military excellence. Webb opened the box, revealing a medal. Sergeant Cross, for your actions during Operation Phantom Talon, you were previously awarded the Navy Cross. Today, after review of classified materials and testimony from multiple witnesses, that award is being upgraded. Maya's breath caught. By order of the President of the United States, you are hereby awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of gone, life above and beyond the call of duty. The room erupted in applause. Every person stood, saluting or clapping, honoring the highest recognition a warrior could receive. Webb pinned the medal to her uniform, the light blue ribbon with 13 white stars standing out against the fabric. Phantom, your country thanks you. Your Marines thank you. And every operator whose life you saved thanks you. When the ceremony concluded, people lined up to congratulate her. to shake her hand, to share their own stories of service and sacrifice. But the moment Maya would remember most came near the end, when an older woman approached with tears in her eyes. "Miss Cross? I'm Margaret Reeves, Danny's mother." Maya felt her throat close up. "Mrs. Reeves, I'm so sorry. I tried to save him. I tried." "I know you did, dear." Margaret took Maya's hands in her own. "Danny wrote to me about you, called you his guardian angel. Said he'd trust you with his life." She smiled through her tears. "He was right to trust you, and I wanted you to know that bringing his killers to justice, making sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain, that means everything to our family. He was my best friend," Maya whispered. "I think about him every day, as do I. But now, when I think of him, I can also think of justice. I can think of the lives saved because you refused to let his death be meaningless." Margaret pulled Maya into a hug. "Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you." They stood like that for a long moment, two women bound by loss and love, and the memory of a Marine who died too young. Later, as the reception wound down, Maya stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in brilliant colors that seemed almost too beautiful for a day so heavy with emotion. Rodriguez found her there, 2 beers in hand. He offered her one without speaking, and they stood in comfortable silence watching the sunset. "You know what Danny would say right now?" Maya said finally. "What?" "He'd say, 'Phantom, you're getting soft. All these awards and ceremonies are going to ruin your edge.'" She laughed, the sound mixing joy and sorrow. "Then he'd make some joke about SEALs giving medals to Marines. And we'd argue about which branch was better until someone made us shut up." Rodriguez smiled. "Sounds like a good friend. The best." Maya touched the Medal of Honor on her chest. "This isn't just for me. It's for all of them. For everyone who didn't make it home. They'd be proud of you." "I hope so." Maya took a sip of her beer. "Master Chief, can I ask you something? Anything? That first day, when I stood up in the tree, briefing, and said I was qualified, what did you really think?" Rodriguez considered this carefully. "Honest answer? I thought you were delusional. Thought you were a contractor who'd watched too many movies and didn't understand what real combat looks like." He paused. "I was completely wrong. And I've never been happier to be wrong about someone. Thanks for giving me a chance to prove it." "Thanks for proving it." Rodriguez raised his beer. "To Phantom, to guardian angels, and to the brotherhood that never dies." "To the brotherhood," Maya echoed, clinking her bottle against his. They stood in silence as the sun sank lower, as the sky darkened from orange to purple to deep blue. Behind them, through the windows of the team compound, they could hear voices and laughter, the sounds of warriors at rest, safe for one more day, protected by people like Maya who stood watch in the planned darkness. Somewhere in the night, other operators were preparing for missions. Other snipers were settling into hide positions. Other warriors were doing the hard, dangerous work that kept America safe. And on a base in California, a Marine turned contractor turned consultant wore a Medal of Honor and carried the memory of 7 friends who would never grow old. But their legacy lived on. In every student she taught, in every operation she helped plan, in every life saved by the knowledge she passed forward. Danny Reeves and Charlie Company were gone, but they were not forgotten. Their names were etched in steel in the SEAL Team 7 compound. Their story was told to every new operator. Their sacrifice was honored every single day by the woman who'd survived when they hadn't. Phantom had finally found her peace. Not by forgetting, but by remembering. Not by running from her past, but by honoring it. Not by being alone, but by accepting the family that had chosen her. The sunset faded completely now, stars beginning to emerge overhead. Maya finished her beer and turned back toward the compound, where her teammates waited, where her family waited, where she belonged. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more military and veteran stories. These true tales keep the courage alive for generations to come. And in the comments, tell us, where are you watching from, and who's the quiet leader you'll never forget.